Boom. There we go. Sorry about that. It was a tremendous night for both the Phillies and the Eagles. Since we did a really big pregame show yesterday, hope you checked that out with me and Dave Gleckner. And make sure you checked out Dave this morning at 9:30. He went live talking about college football. Decided, you know what? We got to be talking about both games, doing a postgame for both the Eagles and for the Phillies, as well as a little bit of a pregame for the Phillies today. Tyler Mroz, Heat Ratio Sports, Eagles and Phillies postgame show, and the Phillies pregame show. So let's get right into it. Obviously, the big one, the 34-29 victory over the Packers for the Eagles last night. Game started off really rough for the Birds, 2 consecutive turnovers. Jalen Hurts had his fair share of mistakes, and the defense turned into Swiss cheese towards the end of the game. But talked about the new offense yesterday, and this was you could definitely tell there were some similarities from last year. A lot of bubble screens, a couple of design quarterback runs for Jalen Hurts as well. A lot of empty too. On 3rd and 1, a lot of empty. Still a ton of passing the ball, but Saquon Barkley. That's all you can say. It was the Saquon Barkley game. 24 carries, 109 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, along with 2 catches for 23 yards and a receiving touchdown. Had the first touchdown of the year for the Birds. Had that Corey Clement-esque play and Kenyon Barner-esque play in the end zone. So a really incredible debut for Saquon Barkley in a Birds uniform. Does not get much better than what he did. I mean, you have 2 rushing touchdowns and a receiving touchdowns, plus over 100 yards rushing. A terrific game for Saquon Barkley. Yeah, go Birds. A huge win for them. Packers, maybe a threat to them in the NFC, but with Jordan Love's injury concern at this point, hoping everything's okay. There were reports that came out that his ACL is intact, so it is not an ACL injury, but whether that's an ankle or an Achilles, meniscus, he will be undergoing an MRI today. So probably by late tonight, early tomorrow, you'll be hearing some more news about that. But motion, we talked last year. Here's a stat line, which is insane that it's even remotely true, because last year there was barely any motion. The lowest rate in the league last year, 35.1%. But yesterday, in Kellen Moore's debut as the offensive coordinator, the offense used motion 65.8% of the time. That's the most motion they have used since 2020. So a definitely brand new, but somewhat similar offense with Kellen Moore. You can still tell Nick Sirianni has that say in it, like we mentioned earlier, with the quarterback runs, the bubbles, and a lot of passing. Why didn't they rush the ball at the end? They were passing the ball in an empty set with an empty backfield way too many times. You are trying to drain the clock. The Packers are running low on timeouts. You have the ball for probably the last time it ended up being the final time the Eagles had the ball. I don't know why they didn't try to run the clock out. Saquon Barkley was tearing it up. We mentioned 109 rushing yards. Even if you throw Kenny Gainwell in the mix, why were they running an empty backfield set, throwing the ball on 1st down, even 2nd down, when it wasn't a great play? I was just concerned about that. So I do have some concerns about the offense in terms of some of the play calls with the pass-happy offense. And then Jalen Hurts had 3 turnovers, 2 awful interceptions. And then the fumble was just a miscommunication between him and Cam Jurgens, but you would expect that. He's had Jason Kelce as the center for his entire career so far. Now Cam Jurgens, who's probably still adjusting to being the starting center, learning all the hard counts and all that stuff. So a little concerned with Jalen Hurts. The first drive of the game had that really bad interception, underthrew it, was a terrible throw anyway, horrible decision. And then you had the end zone interception A.J. Brown was wide open, completely missed him, threw it late once again, and a bad throw, intercepted by the Packers. So I'm slightly concerned with Jalen Hurts, but he made the plays when it mattered, had some really good throws as well. That throw to Saquon Barkley was spot on. So Hurts had I would say, an okay game, made the plays when it mattered most, but did have some questionable moves. And then we're going to we talked about the defensive injuries. We had Devin White, the starting linebacker, who was supposed to be the starting linebacker. He was injured yesterday, and then Zach Bond stepped up in his place, and he stepped up in a huge way. 15 tackles, 11 of them were solo, 2 sacks, the only sacks the Eagles got, and then 1 tackle for loss. So a phenomenal game for the new linebacker for the Eagles. The only person on the team to get a sack. You got a team with Jalen Carter, with Josh Sweat, and guess who was the only one that got sacks and got multiple sacks? Zach Bond. So I think even when Devin White returns next week, if he returns next week, I do think Bond well deserves a starting linebacker spot, whether that's with Nakobe Dean or Devin White. We shall see. But I think Nakobe Dean played pretty well. So I would assume Devin White is probably the odd man out. So unfortunate for him, but you got to play with the hot hand. If you are the hot hand, that's how I roll. I say play whoever's doing better right now. That is at least my mindset. I know a lot of other people don't think that way, but that's just my opinion. And then we also talked about the defensive injuries. Isaiah Rodgers was going to be the cornerback too. He was out with I believe, a hand injury. It's Quinyon Mitchell making his NFL debut, the first round pick for the Eagles this season, and he balled out. Had that one pass interference call, but he looked phenomenal. The speed was there. The coverage was there. So a really impressive game for Quinyon Mitchell. And I know the Packers receivers aren't the greatest, but I mean, you see what Jayden Reed did. Jayden Reed had 4 catches, 138 yards, and a touchdown. So Jayden Reed, I think, is an underrated guy. Same thing with Christian Watson, even though he only got 13 yards, but still got a touchdown. So Packers don't have the greatest receiving core. I still think it's one of the better ones in the league. But Quinyon Mitchell looked very impressive with the start last night. So hopefully he can keep that up. The next game is Monday Night Football next week against the Falcons. What was up with that slippery field? It's the problem with having these international games when you're playing in soccer fields, because they're meant for guys, for like smaller guys to fly on. But it's not a football. It's not meant to have football be played on it. A lot of slips last night. You saw Avonte Maddox slip, gave up that 1 first down in the beginning of the game. A lot of the Packers receivers were falling. Saquon Barkley was trying to juke a guy and he slipped. So they need to do a better job with these field conditions if they are planning on doing more international games, which is what they're going to do. Roger Goodell says he wants at least 16 a year, so 1 per week, which is pretty insane. They play in London yearly. They play in Germany yearly. You had the Brazil game this year. They've played in Mexico before. So I know they're planning on playing in Spain next season. So NFL is really trying to go worldwide. And with this, Roger Goodell wants 1 international game per week, pretty much. So I don't like that. That takes away 1 home game. I get it with the extra game, the home game, because you have 9 home games and 8 road games. But at the same time, I would rather have that 9th game be a neutral site somewhere in the United States. But I do see why he wants a lot of international games. You grow the game nationally, globally. It's a huge thing. I wouldn't say every time. Like if you split it, like half the teams get an international game with that extra home game. Half the teams get a neutral site game. I was like, imagine the Eagles versus the Steelers at Beaver Stadium at Penn State. I feel like that would be a humongous success because it's a college town. You'll get the college crowd. You'll get the Eagles and the Steelers fans. The Battle of Pennsylvania in the middle ground. I think that would be a tremendous idea. But I do see why they're doing the international games. I agree with it, but you can't go too far. Like you go to Sao Paulo, Brazil. Allegedly, they were telling the teams to stay inside their hotels, to not walk out with their phones out. So I'm not sure about going to like everywhere. You don't have to go to everywhere in the world, but visiting some key sites. Like I could see them going to Africa soon because I think it's Nigeria has a huge Eagles following there. I think I saw their Instagram account, but I definitely think NFL is going to Africa sometime soon, and definitely Australia as well. Australia football has been growing there. Obviously, rugby is the big sport there, but you got to have a guy like Jordan Mailata who is from Australia, who played rugby there, seventh round pick for the Eagles, now one of the better left tackles in the NFL. So I do think that Africa and Australia are on the NFL, probably going to be in the NFL's radar. I don't know anything. This is just me speculating, but they got the South America game in. I'm sure they're going to go back sometime soon. Maybe it's to Argentina or to Chile. Roger Goodell wants more NFL games. There's 8 per year now. So he wants to double that in the coming years. And again, Eagles' next game is Monday Night Football against the Falcons. Falcons are who they play this week. I think they play. It's not the Saints, is it? Steelers. Oh yeah, we'll get to that because there's a lot of question marks concerning the Steelers and who's going to start for them. We'll get to that later for the end, not just Philly moments of the night. So yeah, Eagles beat the Packers 34-29. Next game is Monday Night Football. Saquon Barkley, one of the greatest debuts for a team, and then Zach Bond stepping it up on the defensive side. So let me see. I want to see how this works because we were talking about the Eagles. Now we're going to go right to the Phillies. There we go. Boom. The Eagles, yeah, they did beat the Packers. But this is Phillies talk. Today, it is Aaron Nola against Darren McCoffin, I believe is how you say it. 12-6 at 3.29 ERA going against 0-0 and 8.24 ERA. I believe he has 16 innings pitched, if I'm correct. Does not have a lot of innings. I don't know if he started a game. 19 innings. So another guy on the Marlins that has not really pitched a lot this season. You saw it Friday with Adam Alder. I forget how you say his name. But Edward Cabrera was supposed to start for the Marlins yesterday, was scratched last minute, and it was a beatdown. It was 16-2. Not a close game at all. I predicted that in the pregame show. Didn't think it was going to be this much. So we'll go over the players of the game for that game. And it was the entire starting lineup. It's 22 hits, 16 runs, and 2 home runs from Kyle Schwarber and Trey Turner. I believe Trey Turner was a triple away from the cycle. Kyle Schwarber, 3 runs, 1 home run, 3 RBIs. Trey Turner, 3 hits, 3 RBIs. Bryce Harper, 3 hits, 2 RBIs. Bryson Stott, 2 hits, 2 RBIs. JT Realmuto, 2 hits, 2 RBIs. Even Cody Clemens and Johan Rojas each had 3 hits. So not one specific person on this offense deserves a shout out because they were all phenomenal. So got to keep that going today. And then Zach Wheeler, 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 7 strikeouts, adding to his potential NL Cy Young season. Definitely going head to head with Chris Sale. Chris Sale does pitch tomorrow, so we'll see what he does there. Let me see what the odds are for the NL Cy Young right now after last night. I know it was against the Marlins, but performance is a performance. Sportsbook Review. Let's go here. So according to Sportsbook Review, this was update. Oh, this was August 20th. Everything's from 5 days ago, but that's the last time I checked it. MLB, as of 9/5. Okay, so as of September 5th. So it hasn't been updated from yesterday's game with Zach Wheeler. But let's see. According to Fangraphs, as of 5 p.m. 2 days ago on September 5th, for the National League, Zach Wheeler is at plus 1,200 right now. Chris Sale's minus 2,500. So big lead there for Chris Sale. But I've seen other places where Wheeler's plus 340, like on here, he's plus 1,200. I've seen him way closer than that. So don't know really how to feel about those odds. I feel like it's definitely a lot closer than most people would assume. Let me pull up the actual stats for you because I feel like this is a lot closer than most people realize because Chris Sale's been dominating for most of the year, but so is Zach Wheeler, underrated guy. Wheeler, 14-6, a 2.59 ERA, 190 strikeouts. And then you have Chris Sale, who, let's get to his stats. 15-3, 2.58 ERA, 206 strikeouts in about 10 less innings. So a lot closer than people think. I think if Sal has one bad game, Wheeler will be in the lead. So if you see plus money on the Zach Wheeler NL Cy Young odds, I would definitely take that because I could see a world where Zach Wheeler keeps this up and where Chris Sale kind of falls off a little bit. So I really like the odds of Zach Wheeler to win the NL Cy Young for this year. JT Realmuto going to be out for a couple days, likely. Foul ball off of his left leg yesterday, left the game with a leg contusion, and they called up Aramis Garcia. He is a catcher. A lot of you may be wondering, where is Rafael Marchand? He is injured as well. He's on the minor league injured list. So Aramis Garcia will be on the roster for the next couple of days. Nick Nelson, who came in last night, had a good game, was designated for assignment, so he is off the 40-man roster, which is kind of surprising. He went 2 innings, 2 hits, 1 run. 3 strikeouts, did walk 2, had a decent performance. I thought was going to be decent enough to stay on the team, but you have JT being out for a couple of days, so you want to bring up a backup catcher. So now Garcia is going to fill in that role. Stubbs allegedly was supposed to start today anyway, according to Rob Thompson. So he's getting the start today at catcher. Cody Clemens is at third. Let's go Phillies, yeah, and let's go Birds. Keep it up, baby. Phillies red hot. They've won 6 in a row. So with these injury bugs, you lost Alec Boehm to the 10-day IL. Now you're going to lose JT Realmuto for a couple of days. Bryce Harper's been banged up, dealing with some injuries. So Phillies catching the injury bug, not when you want to do it. But at the same time, I'd rather it be now than late September. The Mets have won 8 games in a row, which we'll get to in a little bit. But Phillies need to win as many games as possible because they have 7 games coming up against the Mets. And then in between those games, they play the Brewers in Milwaukee. So get JT Realmuto the rest he needs for right now. And then the Marlins, no Jake Berger in their lineup today. The only guy with over 20 home runs in their entire roster. So Jesus Sanchez, who's batting third for the Marlins today, he has 17 home runs, the second most on the team, which is pretty crazy. I mean, you look at their record, they're 52-89. So not surprising that they only have 2 guys over 10 home runs, which is, I still can't believe that that's a thing. But going to the keys to the game, no inconsistencies from Aaron Nola. Has had some really good performances as of late. Hasn't been striking out as many people, but he's still been really good. But you know how he can be inconsistent, and you cannot afford to lose a game to the Marlins. This is a team you should be sweeping, and especially with the Mets red hot and the Dodgers half a game behind the Phillies, because the Phillies right now have the best record in the MLB. So these are why these games matter. I know people are like, oh, it's the Marlins. Oh, well, you need to win these games because all the other teams around you are winning as well. And you want to win as many games as possible, especially when you're going to be playing 10 games. Yeah, 10 games against two of the teams that are going to be in active playoff contention against you. And keep the bats warm. I didn't say keep the bats hot because you want to keep them warm. You have, like I mentioned earlier, you got 10 games coming up against the Mets and the Brewers. They play the Rays after this series. Rays are not the best team. They're decent. They're not great, though. So you're not going to need 10 runs to beat the Marlins. I mean, they did it last night, but they didn't need it. You're not going to probably even need 5 runs to beat the Marlins. They did it the other night, but again, Marlins have only scored 2 runs in each, of the last 2 nights. So just keep the bats warm. Don't get shut out. If you get 3 or 4 runs, that's probably enough. I mean, again, it all depends on what Aaron Nola does, but you got to conserve the bullpen as well. Seth Johnson is being called up tomorrow. He's making his MLB debut, had an ERA in the mid-2s in the minor leagues. He was acquired in the Gregory Soto trade at the trade deadline, now coming up to make the start for the Phillies as of right now, he is their fifth man in the rotation. So conserve the bullpen just in case. I would assume Taiwan Walker is going to be available, first guy off, and then Jose Ruiz and so on. But just in case, I know he's playing the Marlins. But the Marlins are still a Major League Baseball team, even though they don't really play like it that much. But you need to conserve the bullpen because you don't know what's going to happen with this kid. This kid could come out and he could throw 8 scoreless innings. This kid could come out and he could throw 8 runs in 2 innings. You don't know. You saw Tyler Phillips had a complete game shutout and then gave up 5+ runs in each of his starts after that. So you just need to have the bullpen ready. Nick Nelson was on the team last night, no longer now. He pitched, so boom, that's a guy out. And Jose Alvarado is the only other person in the bullpen that pitched. So try not to have a bullpen game today because you may need a lot of guys for tomorrow. Before we get to the triple play, magic number. That's what we're looking at right now. They need to win 12 for the playoffs, 14 for the NL East, and 17 for a first-round bye. Now, obviously, these could change to even lower. It could be 10 after tonight if certain teams lose. So as of right now, these are the magic numbers for the Phillies. Again, 12 wins, and they will clinch the playoffs. 14 more, and they clinch the NL East, and 17 for a first-round bye, obviously. These will change, but something that hasn't changed is how hot we've been on the HRS Triple play. So let's see how we did last night and what we got cooking up for tonight. So last night we hit another 2. We were this close from hitting 3, hitting a triple play. Zach Wheeler over 7.5 strikeouts at +105. He finished the night with 7, only went 6 innings. So if he went one more, I truly believe he would have gotten that. JT Realmuto, 2+ total bases at +140. He left the game early, but he still got that. Finished the night with 2 singles. And then Bryce Harper was the first RBI of the game as well. So we got that at +150. So another really good night for the triple play. And tonight, this is what we got. Aaron Nola over 6.5 strikeouts at +125. Nola struck out 9 in his last game. Hasn't been striking out a ton recently, but I feel like him in September, this is a different Aaron Nola. He usually struggles in September, but with that performance against the Braves, striking out 9, feel like he's due for another 7 to 8 tonight. So I like the over 6.5 at plus money too. Phillies -1.5 at -142. Phillies won the first game by 3. They won last night's game by 14. So I really like the -1.5. Another kind of unknown guy that has really struggled in his time so far for the Marlins with a red hot batting lineup. So I like Phillies at -1.5. And then Brandon Marsh to get 2+ total bases at +135. Tonight, he's batting 6th? Yeah, he is batting 6th. Averages up to 253 on the season. Had a 1 hit last night, but I do think he is due for a better game because the entire offense was on fire last night, and he was probably the weakest one. But I do think that Brandon Marsh is due for a good game today. And then the bonus bet, we got Kyle Schwarber to hit a home run at +240. In the 19 innings that the Marlins pitcher today has pitched, Darren McCaughan, he has given up 6 home runs. So a lot of home runs in not many innings. So with Kyle Schwarber red hot, hitting 1 last night, hitting 4 in that 2-game series against the Blue Jays, I really do think that a Schwarber home run at +240 is free money. I think that's going to happen. Potentially another leadoff home run. So I don't think there's odds for that. But if there was, I would do that. Again, that 50% is gone no longer. But if you use the code HEAT at Win Daily now, use a scratch and save. So you could get 50% off for a year. You could get 25% off for a week. You just type in the code HEAT. You got to see what you get. It's kind of like a scratch off lottery ticket. You don't know what you're going to get. Could be really good. Could be not as good. But that's the deal now. So scratch and save. Use that promo code HEAT at Win Daily. So again, we got Aaron Nola over 6.5 strikeouts at +125. Phillies -1.5 at -142. And then Brandon Marsh to get 2+ total bases at +135. We always track the NL playoff race. Dodgers losing to the Guardians last night, 3-1. Shohei Ohtani did get to 100 RBIs on the season. The MLB account posted more about that than the Guardians beating them. A huge win for them, huge loss for the Dodgers because now Phillies have overtaken that number one spot in the major leagues and National League as well. The Brewers, they lost to the Rockies 3-2, so the Phillies gain another game on them. Really seems like the Brewers are kind of out of that number one seed race. They're likely going to be the 3 seed, but it's baseball. It's September 7th. There's still a little under a month to go. Anything can happen. But as of right now, looking like the Brewers are going to be that 3 seed. Braves did beat the Blue Jays 3-1. Spencer Schwellenbach on the mound for them tonight had some success against the Phillies. Going up against Jose Barrios, though, he has similar stats to Schwellenbach, so we'll see how that plays out. And then the Mets, walking off against the Cincinnati Reds last night, 8-game winning streak. They are now tied with the Braves for that last wild card spot. Mets, man, they have been so inconsistent. It's like they get really hot and then they get really cold, and now they win 8 in a row. So, like we mentioned earlier, Phillies, right after that Rays series, they play 3 against the Mets. They play 3 against the Brewers, and then they play 4 against the Mets on the road. So the fact that the Phillies are winning these games now is all the more important because you got the Mets who have won 8 in a row. I know the Phillies have won 6 too, but don't take this team lightly. They are red hot right now. And then speaking of the Mets, we're going to get to the not just Philly moments of the night. They had a big blow. Jeff McNeil is out for the year, former All-Star, one of the most unlikable people on that team, in my opinion. He is out for the season for the Mets, so a big loss to their lineup. But one guy goes to the injury list, another one comes back. The Astros activated outfielder Kyle Tucker. When the Astros were kind of struggling, he was linked to the Phillies when they were potentially going to be sellers, but Astros are back in first place, and Kyle Tucker, a huge, huge boost to that lineup. One of the best hitters in the league. And then Manny Machado, tied for the most home runs in Padres history, 163. Joined the team in 2019. Phillies almost signed him. It was between him, Bryce Harper, and Patrick Corbin. Obviously, Phillies got Bryce Harper. Machado went to the Padres. He's now tied with Nate Colbert for the most home runs in Padres history. So Machado will most likely surpass that by the end of the season, maybe even by the end of next week. So congrats to Manny Machado, one of the best signings in their franchise's history. So yeah, going to football, the Steelers don't know who their quarterback's going to be. Russell Wilson, named the captain, was named quarterback 1, but he's been dealing with a calf injury. So then reports came out that he's unlikely to play and that Justin Fields is going to be the starter. But then another report came out today. Russ is traveling with the team to Atlanta, and he is questionable. So he went from doubtful to questionable. So don't know who it's going to be. It's going to be a game time decision. I would guess it's going to be Justin Fields, but I would not be shocked at all if Russ played. He's a tough guy. He is a competitor. A lot of people like to give him crap. He obviously is not as good as he once was one of, if not the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Not that anymore. I still think he's okay. I wouldn't call him bad. I just don't think he's as good as he used to be, obviously. But we'll see tomorrow. Game time decision if it's going to be Justin Fields or if it's going to be Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. And then Jamar Chase and Hassan Reddick, they may not play for their teams. Jamar Chase, 2 years left on his contract, holding out, practiced a couple times with the Bengals this training camp, but 2 years left on the contract and a 25, 22, something in the $20 million option for the 5th year. Kind of insane that the NFL is kind of letting these players dictate what they want. They're holding out. They're like, you pay me or I'm not playing. Well, they're getting fined. So Jamar Chase may not play for the Bengals, says he's a game time decision. And then Hassan Reddick, who Howie Roseman traded to the Jets for a conditional 2nd-round pick, could be a 3rd-round pick, will likely be a 3rd-round pick, with the assumption that the Jets would pay him. They did not pay him yet, and he has not practiced for them. He has not shown up for the Jets. So Hassan Reddick, Robert Saleh said, is likely out tomorrow. He may be out for the season. He said a report came out that Hassan Reddick is willing to die on a hill. So for that contract, so he may not even play this season for the Jets, or the Jets going to trade him. A lot of unanswered questions there. CJ, I think, is fine. He came back onto the field. Should not be anything long term or short term. College football week 2 happened today. Michigan getting blown out by Texas. What's that score now? We'll go through score by score. Arkansas State is in overtime with Oklahoma. Georgia's killing Tennessee Tech. Notre Dame, Northern Illinois tied near the end of the first quarter. What are the other final scores? Let's get to the bottom. All right. Georgia Tech losing to Syracuse. So Georgia Tech coming off that big win against Florida State, ranked 28th now. They lose to Syracuse 31-28. Penn State ranked number 8. They beat Bowling Green 34-27. Texas, number 3, obliterates Michigan 31-12. So they're feeling the loss of Jim Harbaugh already. They get blown out by Michigan. Michigan gets blown out by Texas. Kansas State beat Tulane by 7 there. So some upsets there. Again, college football is unpredictable. A great time because you got the NFL season starting, you got college football going on right now. So football fans, this is heaven because Thursday you had the Chiefs Ravens. Yesterday you had the Eagles Packers. Today you got college football, and then tomorrow and Monday you have more NFL play. So one of the best time of year for football fans. Then going to the NBA, Jamal Murray. He signed a 4-year, $208 million extension with the Denver Nuggets. Won the NBA Finals 2 seasons ago, and now he's there for another 4 more years. Signed the max. Jamal Murray, one of those guys that's pretty good in the regular season, nothing crazy. But when he gets to the playoffs, he's just another animal. He's like Jimmy Butler, but just in a guard form. Had that insane 2020 playoffs. Had the insane 2022 playoffs. So congratulations to Jamal Murray for getting that bag. And then for wrestling fans, SmackDown aired its final episode on Fox. It's moving to the USA Network next week. SmackDown on Fox era, not a good one because you had the first episode, infamous first episode. Brock Lesnar versus Kofi Kingston for the WWE title. Brock Lesnar beats Kofi in 6 seconds? And then after the match, Cain Velasquez, former UFC fighter that beat Brock Lesnar in the UFC, came out to confront him, challenge for the title. They had an awful match after that. So a lot of not great moments on SmackDown on Fox, at least in the end of the Vince McMahon era, but had some pretty good moments in the Triple H era. But moving to USA next week. And then Postgame live here on Heat Ratio Sports, 5 to 10 minutes after the final out. I'll be talking all about it. We'll be covering more college football games, going over if any of the HRS Triple play hit, I should say when it hits. So Eagles beating the Packers 34-29 last night, 16-2 Phillies over the Marlins. And then today you got Aaron Nola going up against Darren McCoffin. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Hopefully I am, but apologies if I'm not. So again, post game live 5 to 10 minutes after the final out. First pitch is in 5 minutes, so go check that out. Like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you're pressing that notification bell. You get notified when Dave's going live, when Tony's going live, when I'm going live. Anything on Heat Ratio Sports, make sure you are pressing that bell. So have a good night, everyone. Hope to see you at the post-game show. So have a good one, everyone. Stay fresh, my friends.